Hi, I'm Brian Jordan, and you're watching On Deck with Tyler Redmond.
So I got a call that said, this is Susan Bailey. And I said, yeah, but I'm sorry, I don't know a Susan Bailey. She goes, I'm Henry Aaron's secretary. And I went, yeah. She goes, Henry would like to talk to you. I said, yeah, okay. And he said, how would you like to fly down to Sarasota and look at our pictures? And I said, I would love to. He said, well, when can you do it? Jokingly, I said, tomorrow. He goes, okay, we'll take care of that. I'll meet you at the airport in Atlanta. Susan will have the arrangements. And then I get on a plane with Hank Aaron and fly down to Sarasota. He offers me a job, and I said, well, what team do you want me to manage? He goes, no, he wants you to be a pitching coach.
Hi, this is Phil Necro. You're watching On Deck with Tyler Redmond.
Most guys throw it this way. Put the ball back in here, hands come around, and these two fingers come into the ball, and stiff wristed, no follow throw, and just little up and goes in the bat. I hope there's no rotation on. The ball comes in there and doesn't bother. It doesn't never do the same thing twice.
This is Kyle Wright, and you're watching On Deck with Tyler Redmond.
One of my favorite moments for your career, as of right now, is actually this past week. It was a show of confidence by Brian Snicker. He left you in the game after bases were loaded. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, it was really cool. I went back and I saw that clip on Instagram several times. I'll be honest, I went back and I watched it numerous times. Kind of gave me chills a little bit. It was just really cool. I was kind of lost my command a little bit there. Still made some good pitches, but was definitely getting a little tired. So whenever he said, basically left me in the game, I feel like that kind of gave me what I needed to get me over the hump to make a good pitch, get a ground ball back to me, and get out of that inning.
This is Matt Olson. You're watching On Deck with Tyler Redmond. Yeah, it's a pretty cool experience. Not everybody gets this opportunity to kind of set up their roots and be somewhere long term that they grew up and have family and friends. So it happened pretty quick there in spring training, and it was just an opportunity that my wife and I and my family thought that we couldn't pass up. So just jumped on it, and it's been a blast.
Says, Chief, why don't you race Ralph Garr? I said, okay. Said, Ralph Garr wants to race you too. So we started on the first base line on the outfield line. We started, bam, took off running. I beat him by 3 foot.
Mike Bolton here. You're watching On Deck with Tyler Redmond.
I'm Kelsey Wingert, and you're watching On Deck with Tyler Redmond.
Hey, this is Andrew Jones. You watch On Deck with Tyler.
Hello, baseball fans. You're watching On Deck with Tyler Redmond.
Tonight's show is brought to you by Glenn Smith Chevrolet GMC in Opelika. Get ready to smile. And guys, I don't want to waste any more time. I just want to get on here and I want to talk about what we saw today. I want to talk about the season so far as a whole. I got to tell you, it does not feel great. I am doing this show, no notes, nothing prepared. I was at work and I saw the game happen, and it was immediately, we got to get on and talk about it tonight, because this season has just been a perpetual, it hasn't felt great all year. Nothing about watching the Braves has been fun. I was talking to a good friend of mine the other day who has a lot of baseball experience. I'll leave it at that. And he just kind of told me that it's not fun to watch the Braves anymore. And this is someone who's, to be honest with you, forgotten more about baseball than any of us know. Very good friend of mine. And he's right. It hasn't been fun. Today was the best example of that I've seen all year long, where it just has not been fun to watch the Braves. And that's not fun. Getting on here talking about it not being fun is not fun. But we have to. It's something that we have to talk about because that's what we have to talk about. And it's not fun, but I want to talk about today. Number one, I've said all year long that I thought our bullpen was the biggest concern. I thought it going into the season. I thought it going, I thought it 2 weeks ago. I thought it a month ago. I thought altogether bullpen was going to be our worst feature. And so far I've been right. I would have never expected that Raisel Iglesias would be a part of that supporting argument. But right now, Raisel Iglesias does not look like himself. And to be fair to the bullpen, they did cover 6 innings today, which is not ideal either. And that's due to Grant Holmes only going 3 1/3. Grant Holmes has been good in a lot of roles. He's been able to be used as a starter, as a reliever at a time's notice. 3 runs across 3 innings, not his best day, but the game was still well within reach. It's not like the Braves were out of it; they were winning when he got out of the game. So, at one point they were up 6-0. At another point they were up 10-4. Either way, 6-run difference should win you the ball game. Your offense did its job, and it's an offense that hasn't done its job every day this year, no doubt about that. But today it falls on the pen. Of course, Scott blew it. Indeed, did blow it today. 1 1/3. 5 earned runs today. Just a terrible outing. No way around that. Raisel Iglesias follows that with 3 earned runs of his own total. So the Braves end up losing 11-10, and I can't begin to tell you just how just bad taste in my mouth. Because I'll be honest with you, I didn't really get to watch all of this game. I was watching it up until it was 9-3. I was at work, so I kind of got busy doing something else. I overheard somebody talking about the Braves, and I said, "Oh, did they win?" I figured it was over. Oh no, they're down by 1 going into the 9th, and I said, "Are you talking about today's game?" And they, of course, informed me of the bad news. So obviously, not a fun day. Now let's take today away, and let's talk about the season. Because the season has had a lot of different twists and turns, no doubt about that. It has been just abysmal in a lot of different ways. Obviously, we all know about the injuries. That's where this all started. Last year, even, has kind of carried into this year with the injuries, and people are coming back. They're not fully themselves, or maybe they came back a little too early in Strider's case, or they're just running into issues, or whatever the case may have you. That has carried over, no doubt about that. Now, that said, that's not it. That's not all of it. I believe that the biggest problem with this season is the fact that the Braves did not want to spend money over the luxury tax. And we talked about that in an in-depth segment on, in the offseason. I went fully into that. I told you why they weren't going to do it, even if they say they might. I didn't think they were going to, unless they just had a move that 110% made a lot of sense. And the only big splash that they made was for Jurickson and Profar. Of course, you know how that turned out, but at least up until this point. The bullpen was my biggest target. Pitching was my biggest target in the offseason. That was the thing that I really circled and thought that's what we got to go get. And it's hard. It's a hard thing to get right now. There's no doubt about that. It is a hard thing to find across baseball at the moment. Pitching is always a top commodity, but it's a commodity that everybody's going to need. So where do we go from here? Well, as I see in the comment section, Jeffrey Humphrey says, hopefully this is rock bottom. Yeah, I saw my good buddy Lindsey Crosby post on Twitter today, this is easily the worst game of the year so far. So there's still possibilities of having bad days. Genuinely I hope that that's not where we're headed. I tend to believe that it's going to get worse before it gets better, though. I do think that. I think it's going to go one of two ways. Either the team is going to rally around today, they're going to take the embarrassment, and they're going to get their head on straight and, flip a gear, maybe with some assistance from the front office. Because if you remember back in 21, it took Jock Peterson to get everything back moving correctly. It either goes that way, or it goes the way of we're sellers at the deadline, which I know nobody wants to talk about that possibility. Nobody wants to talk about the Braves possibly being sellers at the deadline, but it's out there. It's out there. And there are candidates to be sold. No doubt about that. I look at a guy like Marcell Ozuna, who is probably right now been the most consistent bat on the team for the past 2 or 3 years. He's a commodity that could be traded for a load of prospects that, frankly, the Braves don't really have. And I'm not talking high A, I'm talking triple A. High-level prospects. Chris Sale has been mentioned. I don't find that likely. I just don't think that makes a lot of sense. As hard as pitching is to come by, and the 3-year commitment you made with Sale, I find it unlikely, although not impossible, because right now the Braves are going to have to make a decision. Are you fighting for this year? Are you fighting for next year? Or are you fighting for 2 or 3 years down the road? And right now it would be easy for Atlanta to decide we're going to focus on the future. We're hitting that point where I used to put this graphic up all the time of here are the timetables for contracts. Here's where they're going to end, right? Most of them around 27 to 29, 2027 to 29. Somewhere in that ballpark. That was back when all of the big deals were being signed. So Acuna got signed, Ozzie got signed, Ozuna got signed, Riley got signed, Olsen got signed. I had them all kind of lined up. Here's how it is. And I wish I had that ready for you tonight, but I just wanted to get on here and talk. I may add this in the edited version of this video, so be ready for that. But the timetable is running out. And the other thing you have to consider about what's running out, Acuna, his injuries and that kind of thing, it's only going to be so long. And you don't want to think that way. I'm trying to think of it from an organizational standpoint. Your window's closing. The window is closing, if it's not already. The energy on the team is bad. Watching the game is not what it used to be. And I don't mean, like they say, old timers say that watching the game today is not the same as 20 years ago. I mean, watching the Braves is not the same as it was 2-3 years ago. It's not fun. And I don't mean because they're not hitting. The energy in the team's not there. Right? I was talking to my dad earlier, and it was, he basically said that once the 3-run homer was hit today, it looked like the team was defeated on TV. And they still had a 3-run lead. And sure enough, we know how it ended. Now, all is not forsaken. All is not lost. There's still plenty of time for the Braves to make a run. If you're asking me what's likely, well, mathematically, it's unlikely that the Braves make the playoffs right now, based on the trajectory of their season. It's unlikely. Now, has that stopped them before? No. There's still possibilities. I'm giving you reality, which, again, not something a lot of people want to hear. I don't really want to hear it myself, but that's where we're at. The other thing about this is there is still time to make moves. I just don't know if the moves are going to be selling. I don't know if the moves are going to be in rebuild mode. I don't know if the move is going to be in buying, because I don't know if what we need to buy is on the market. We need pitching. And that is, like I said, a top commodity, and I just don't know that it's out there. I could be wrong, but I just don't know that it's out there. Now, I'm not on here telling you this, saying that the Braves are just going to go fire sale. I don't think that at all. It's certainly not yet, if that was to happen. They're not there yet. They are much more, I think, on the situation of waiting till the deadline if they were to do that. And I hate to even suggest that they're going to sell. But when you look at the standings and you do realize they're 11 games back, they're 2 games back of the Nationals, who are in third place, it's tough. It's tough. And the Braves, I mentioned the luxury tax earlier. A lot of people get mad about the Braves not going over the luxury tax. Well, here's the reality of that situation. The reality of that situation is they're not the Dodgers, they're not the Padres, they're not the Mets, and they're not the Phillies. Unfortunately, 2 of those teams are in our division, and they like to spend money. Now, whether you classify that as right or wrong, I've always appreciated the fact that the Braves have to kind of circumnavigate the bank account and get creative in their approach. And they have. They've signed team-friendly, long-term deals. Those can go one of two ways. They can go really good or they can go really bad. And for the Braves, they've had a little bit of both, right? So far, that team-friendly, long-term deal for Sean Murphy probably doesn't sound too great to a lot of you guys. The team-friendly deal to Acuna probably sounds like music to your ears, even with the injuries. The team-friendly deal to Strider right now, you could argue, he's had Tommy John since then. Injuries happen. That's part of the deal. As much as Michael Harris has struggled at the plate, you could argue, that deal may not pan out on paper. That's the risk you take. All that said, I think the way the Braves do it's the best in baseball. It's just not panning out the way we want right now because you have to roll with your guys. A lot of people are like, we just need to completely rebuild. And here's where I'm at on it. I don't think you rebuild right now. Look, you could get a haul. You could trade Matt Olson, Austin Riley, Michael Harris, Acuna, Albies, and you could get a load of talent. But you're going to wait 5 years. I don't think the Braves are going to do that because they had, 30,000 people in the ballpark today for a noon game. Regardless of what they did, they're still doing well, all right? Whether they're having mass exodus at the ballpark or not in the 6th or 7th inning. That's where we're at. I don't think business-wise it makes sense to rebuild. That said, I'm not a businessman with the Braves. I'm just telling you, I don't think they're going to do that. There's too much money to be made. However, I do think that the bullpen needs drastic work. It may not be till next year that happens. But I couldn't tell you exactly how many, but there's a lot of one-run games that the Braves have lost or even just blown, at the tail end, today included. Today we blew a 7-run game or 6-run game. So to me, the bullpen makes the most sense because even with A.J. Smith-Shawver going down, even with Strider being hurt, the starting rotation most of the time is pretty good. Especially with Spencer Schwellenbach and Chris Sale. They have guys there that I'm not extremely worried about day in, day out, how they're going to do. Now, Bryce Elder is a different case. I won't lie about that. But 9 times out of 10, the rotation, if everybody's healthy especially, is fine. The bullpen is the one where if everybody's healthy, I'm still worried, right? The offense is starting to find its gear. Even, you can point your finger at today, but they scored 10 runs today. The offense, I believe, is going to find its gear. I think Ozzie Albies is going to improve simply by having Acuna back, which a lot of people are going to look at me cross-eyed and go, what are you talking about? Ozzie Albies' numbers with Acuna there versus not are better. I did a video on that a couple of years ago, which obviously we've had some numbers since then, but I'm telling you his numbers are better when Acuna's there. I think he's going to improve. I think Olson, as frustrated as he may be in the dugout, I think he's going to improve at some point because it doesn't last this long. At some point, these guys got to find their role. In terms of the hitting coach, a lot of people are talking about personnel. I'm talking about personnel. A lot of people are going after Snit. We'll talk about that a little later. But there's a lot of talk about that. I don't have the knowledge to call for anybody's job. I'm not going to act like I do. But I do think that the longer this goes on, the more likely a change in that regard is going to happen. Whether it be managerial or whether it be staff or whatever may have you. Instead of attacking the manager, you may attack you may approach rather the coach in question, right, of the department in question. Well, right now, to me, it's bullpen. What's going on with Iglesias? If you watch Snit's postgame today, it was pretty interesting. He said Iglesias has the stuff, he's just not executing. Now, you can push that off as coach speak, you can push that off as a lot of things, but if that's true, why isn't he executing? I'd like to know what's holding him back. Is it him? Is it coaching? What is it? Because this is a guy who barely gave up any homers last year and has given up quite a few this year, has not been the guy he's supposed to be, has looked more like the Anaheim Raisel Iglesias than the Atlanta Raisel Iglesias. And I think at some point the questions have to be asked. You could look at the lineup and say, well, why don't you look like 2023? And, that's a fair question, but I never expected them to look like 2023. 2023 was an absolute, just not a fluke per se, but it's a rarity. You don't get that every year. That's everything rolling perfect, hardly any injuries, and you have an MVP on your team, and everybody finds their groove. That's a rarity. It doesn't happen all the time, even with the best players. It just doesn't happen. Somebody's going to struggle. But I do believe that where the Braves are is interesting. It's an interesting spot to be in, and it's a sucky spot to be in. It just does not feel like the team that we're familiar with. It's unusual. But that's where we're at. So that's the therapy session, if you tuned in for that. Hope I gave you something. I'm just kind of rattling off. We do have some news to talk about coming up. We're going to talk about, obviously, the return of Craig Kimbrel. I'll give you the backstory real quick. I saw him in his AA appearances down here. I'll give you what my thoughts on him coming back are, what he could realistically be, who he could realistically be. And I'll also give you my thoughts on the whole Snicker coaching conversation. Stay with us. That's coming up next.
In 2025, we're hammering down high prices at Glenn Smith GMC in Opelika. New GMC Sierra 4x4 crew cabs, discounted up to $12,000 off. GMC Terrain with a roomy cabin and pro safety, discounted up to $7,000 off. Enjoy the new year with no payments for 120 days. Choose from over 500 new and used vehicles on the lot or on the way. GlennSmith.com. Get ready to smile. In 2025, we're hammering down high prices at Glenn Smith Chevrolet in Opelika. New Chevy Silverado 4x4 crew cabs, discounted up to $12,000 off. Brand new 2025 Chevy Equinox, the compact SUV with high-tech features, discounted up to $5,000 off. Enjoy the new year with no payments for 120 days. Choose from over 500 new and used vehicles on the lot or on the way. GlennSmith.com. Get ready to smile.
All right, everybody, welcome back. Again, thank you for being here tonight. If you're new here, please do us a favor, subscribe, just so you know when we go live. Hit the bell. That'll notify you when we go live, when we drop new content, all that stuff. I got a great few interviews that we're going to drop this week. Doug Flynn, we've heard from him before, tells a great Pete Rose story. I mean, I don't even want to spoil it. Just a phenomenal Pete Rose story. My good friend Dave Bristol, we're going to hear from him. Daryl Cheney as well. So we got some interviews coming either this week or next, in that order, more than likely. So just be ready for those. Obviously, always more around the corner. But let's go ahead and talk about Craig Kimbrel. Craig Kimbrel is back with the Atlanta Braves. They selected his contract today. And this is big news. Everybody's been speculating as to when Craig Kimbrel may get the call. And obviously, the atrocious performance by the Braves bullpen on Thursday's game against the Diamondbacks, the series finale where 7 runs were given up for the Diamondbacks to walk it off, even though it wasn't a walk-off. It was atrocious. The bullpen was terrible. Scott blew it, and he indeed did blow it. But Raisel Iglesias has been questionable. Will Craig Kimbrel be who we think he's going to be? Will he be the Craig Kimbrel of old? Absolutely not. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. He's not going to be the guy who he was when he was a rookie. That's not who he has been since, I would say, 2017 or 18. He hasn't been that guy. He's not the flamethrower that's going to blow it past you, but he can still be successful. I live in Columbus, Georgia, where the Columbus Clingstones play. That is the AA affiliate of the Braves. We were here for his first outing under the Braves umbrella in, I guess, over a decade. I got to cover that, and it was very cool. Frankly, just being a ballpark when Kimbrel comes in, because it is different. It's electric, and I'm sure it will be at the major league level too. But around here, minor league baseball made its return, and Kimbrel being a part of that made that even more special. That said, I was sitting next to a couple of scouts who I got to know pretty well. Over a weekend of sitting next to each other, you tend to communicate quite a bit. And one of them had a speed radar gun, and the stadium that they're playing in right now is not equipped with it. So I'd lean over and go, all right, where are we sitting? Because Kimbrel was dominant. He was absolutely dominant against the AA hitters. Now, it's AA. You can make that for what it is. How does that compare with the major leagues? To me, it doesn't matter. He was dominant for the night, and that's all we really cared about. He was dominant in AA, period. He had 3 appearances, didn't give up a run. He looked really good. But when I leaned over and I said, hey, where are we sitting on the velo? He was sitting around 91, 92. And I knew right then, like, okay, well, it's going to be a little minute before he gets called up. This is like back in April, so it's been a month and change since this happened. But I knew at that point, like, okay, it's going to be a little while. Here we are now, and from what I'm hearing is he's sitting around 94-ish. He might get up to 95. Look, that's not who he was at one point. We all know he used to flirt with 100, and it looked like it, the pitch rose and all that. That's who he used to be. But he can still be effective. He's still a Hall of Fame caliber pitcher. And I think he could be very effective. Now, does that mean he's going to come in and immediately be the closer? I don't think so. I think a lot of people are expecting that. I don't know that I do. Because Craig Kimbrel has not closed hardly at all in the minors. He has 3 saves in 18 appearances. He's barely been a 9th inning guy in the minor leagues. That's not to say that he won't be once he gets, put on the major league roster starting tomorrow. But there's a lot of ways that can go. I have a lot of faith in him. I think he's happy to be back. I spoke to him when he came back. Prior to his first outing, we had a conversation or two, nothing in depth, but you could tell that he was a little excited to be having a walk down memory lane. I'll put it to you that way. I really do think he's happy to be back in one way or another. I think he wants to contribute. He has something to prove. And with Craig Kimbrel, it's interesting. The guy that gets a lot of credit for Kimbrel's early success was Billy Wagner. The old mentor to Craig Kimbrel was Billy Wagner. I'm wondering, will Craig Kimbrel be a mentor to somebody else? And Billy Wagner, of course, finished his career in a Braves uniform, 1 year with the Braves, and of course he's now getting a call to the Hall of Fame. I hope that Craig Kimbrel can have the rest of this season, maybe one more in a Braves uniform, and march his way up to Cooperstown. That's where I'm at. I hope he can contribute. I hope he can be a valuable piece of this team. I think he can be. I don't want to tell you wrong, but the velo I don't think is going to be the story of his success. I think it's going to be what's between the ears that's going to make the difference for Craig Kimbrel. So that's what I would say. We'll see how it goes. I wish him the best. I'm happy he's back, and I hope he welcomes us all to the jungle. That's what I'll say. I hope that he revives the old walkout song. I do hope that, but we'll see how it goes. The Braves bullpen needed something, and it was going to take something of this magnitude for the Braves to call up Kimbrel. Well, here we go. Let's see what happens. So we'll see. I guess starting tomorrow against the Giants, what happens. Of course, it's never fun to go to the West Coast. Never is, but we'll hopefully get a change of pace. Guys, when we return, we're going to talk about SNIT, then we're going to get to your comments, so get them in. But we're going to talk about SNIT, whether or not, where we should go from here and personnel and all that. We're going to talk about all of it coming right up.
In 2025, we're hammering down high prices at Glenn Smith GMC in Opelika. New GMC Sierra 4x4 crew cabs, discounted up to $12,000 off. GMC Terrain with a roomy cabin and pro safety, discounted up to $7,000 off. Enjoy the new year with no payments for 120 days. Choose from over 500 new and used vehicles on the lot or on the way. GlennSmith.com. Get ready to smile. In 2025, we're hammering down high prices at Glenn Smith Chevrolet in Opelika. New Chevy Silverado 4x4 crew cabs, discounted up to $12,000 off. Brand new 2025 Chevy Equinox, the compact SUV with high-tech features, discounted up to $5,000 off. Enjoy the new year with no payments for 120 days. Choose from over 500 new and used vehicles on the lot or on the way. GlennSmith.com. Get ready to smile.
Welcome back, everybody. Again, thank you for being here with us tonight. Got a good 40 solid, looks like, in the chat. I really do appreciate it. While you're here, please do like the video. It really does help us get to a broader audience while we're live. And that, of course, makes for a better comment section, makes for a better show. So please do make sure to like. If you have not subscribed, please do that as well. We really would appreciate it. I want to talk about SNIT. I want to talk about the coaching staff as a whole. I think Brian Snitker is going to finish the year. That's either music to your ears or somebody taking their nails down a chalkboard to your ears. You either love it or you hate it. And it's not that I really have a preference either way at this point, but I just don't see the Braves at this point taking Snitker out midseason. He's had a lot of success in a Braves uniform. He has spent 50 years in a Braves uniform, whether at the major leagues level or in the minor leagues. I just don't see them removing him in such a aggressive manner. And again, you may hate what I'm saying, but I just don't see that. I could be wrong. I just don't. And to be honest with you, I don't think Snit has done anything that justifies it. And here's what I mean by that. Yes, the team is bad. Okay, it's bad. But I don't think he's done anything to harm it. And a lot of people are going to fight me on that. Let's take today, for example. Scott Blewett is out there. He pitches the 8th inning. It's kind of, but the Braves had a 6-run lead going into the 9th. He didn't want to waste Iglesias if he didn't have to. And let's face it, Iglesias hasn't exactly been the best anyway. So he rolled the dice on Blewett again, and obviously it didn't go well. But that's where we're at. Blewett gave up 1 run in the 8th and 4 in the 9th before Iglesias came in and gave up another 3. So it seemed to me like he was doomed if he did, doomed if he didn't. And this is one case that we're breaking down. But I listened to his postgame today. I was really curious to hear it because before he even took the mic, people were clamoring for his job. And look, that's nothing new. It's nothing new to hear people talking about, I want Snit fired, I want him gone. I get about 12 texts a day telling me they want Snit gone for something. So it's nothing I'm not familiar with. I've defended him over the years. And if I thought it was that egregious, I would tell you. And look, I mean, maybe there is a change of philosophy that's needed. But to me, that's an off-season change. That's not a mid-season change. I think right now you'd be harming the team more by removing him than you would be by keeping him. Because removing him, if that's the route we really want to go, removing him right now is going to send the team into even more of a chaotic situation, right? Everybody is going to be on edge if they're not already. I just don't know that you want to completely turn the tide. Now, that doesn't mean a coaching change isn't possible. I do think that. We saw Kevin Seitzer get removed at the conclusion of last season, and I think that's probably where we're headed, depending on what they want to change, whether it be pitching coach, whether it be manager, whether it be hitting coach. I think it's going to be an off-season thing. And here's the other thing. This isn't a secret. Dave O'Brien has kind of said this before, but look, Brian Snitker very well may retire at the end of the year. You may get your wish, everybody. And look, I want to make clear, I am not saying that I want Snit gone, but I'm telling you that he very well may retire anyway. I think he's going to be 65 this year. He's getting there. He's got nothing left to prove, but I think everybody needs to realize Brian Snitker, and I said this earlier about another guy, but I'm going to use it again. Brian Snitker has forgotten more about baseball than we'll ever know. He has dug into it. He has studied it. He has learned it. And, is every decision he makes the right one? No, but he's across the aisle from another manager who knows just as much, if not more. And, it's a tough job. It's a thankless job. And until 2021, everybody didn't want Brian Snitker, right? Then he manages a perfect postseason in terms of the bullpen. And he got some cred for that, but very rarely has Brian Snitker got what he got the thanks he deserves. And I am not one to criticize someone who's more qualified than me to do a job about how they're doing it. But look, that's not to say that sometimes I don't go, oh, thank you. He will be 70 this year. So yeah, he very well may hang it up. But again, I'm not one to criticize someone who's more qualified than me. That doesn't mean that I won't go, oh, you're bringing him in? Ooh, I don't. But I also look around and go, well, what else does he got? And you can find out who you want to blame for that, but he doesn't have a lot of great options in the pen right now. There's not a lot of great dependable options. And outside of that, his only role really is to make the lineup card. And if your guys aren't hitting, it doesn't matter what order they're in. If they're not hitting, they're not hitting. So I tend to hold back on criticism of the manager. The manager, not to say he doesn't have a duty, because he does, but the manager a lot of times is facilitating what the team has put in place, which is hitting coaches, pitching coaches, and that kind of thing. Now, when Kevin Cash took Blake Snell out in the playoffs or in the World Series, okay, we can have a conversation, right? Because that's, to me, a great overstep. Now, here's the other component of this. How much does Snitker actually have a choice over? Because a lot of stuff, you'll hear that Snit has control over the lineup and that kind of thing, which very well may be true. I don't know. But I do know across Major League Baseball, responsibilities of the manager are slowly being taken away. I don't know how much Snit does. I'm not going to sit here and act like I do. I don't. But I'm just slow to criticize on something that I know, frankly, little about. I don't know how it operates. I know that he probably picks who's in the, who's going to relieve and that kind of thing. But he is not only thinking about today, he's thinking about 3 days from now. Who am I going to have available? And there's a lot of thought that goes into it. A lot of times we're very reactive as human beings. We just naturally are reactive. Look, my phone, I can't get on TikTok right now without seeing people screaming at their phone, yelling expletives about the Braves right now. So I get it. And I know I have some of that in my comments section, more than likely. But right now, that's where we're at. It's a tough situation. I hope that the Braves figure it out. There's nothing more that I would love than for the Braves to have another turnaround season, especially for Snit's last one, if it is, which I hate to even keep suggesting because I don't know. But if it is, I'd love for them to figure it out for Snit and have a good season for Snit. But we'll have to see what happens. Let's see. Fanny Pack. What a great YouTube name. Fanny Pack. That's a great name. Fanny Pack says, I found the hiring of Freddie Gonzalez as third base coach pretty funny. That one caught me off guard. And look, I have no beef with Freddie Gonzalez. I will tell you that the memory that sticks out the most, it's right back here. The memory that sticks out the most is the infield fly call. That's the one where when I think Freddie Gonzalez, I think about him cussing out Fairchild, wasn't it? Chad Fairchild. I think about him cussing out Chad Fairchild and just ripping him a new one. That's where my mind goes. So it's not really a bad place in terms of Freddie Gonzalez. It's not a good place either, but that's where my mind goes. So it's just I was a little surprised because it was just a blast from the past in a way. Not a bad one. Not, I don't know that Freddie Gonzalez was like all that terrible. I don't think the team was really all that great. I think, look, he's coached with the Tigers since then. He's coached with a couple other teams, I think. I think he's fine as a coach. We had him under Bobby Cox for quite a while as I think either a third or first base coach. So I don't think either of those I have a problem with. We're talking about the possibility of Snit hanging it up. For all you guys out there wanting him gone, they may have just hired his replacement. So let's just take that for what you want. I have a friend that's giving me the crazy eyes for suggesting it. I don't know. I don't even know if that's the worst thing in the world. I don't know, but you may get what you ask for, and I don't know that you really want it. That's kind of my point. A lot of folks in the chat, a lot of folks talking about Matt Tuiasosopo getting reassigned for Freddie Gonzalez. I don't know. I guess the base running thing has just really became the one that stuck out to me. I'm reading Corey Carter's comment. He's talking about Acuna. Him sending Acuna got him reassigned. That one was bad. The Eli White situation, not that was even on Tui, but the Eli White situation doesn't help his case. I don't know. They may have just had a better gig for him. Who knows? But that's just me. A lot of folks in the chat tonight, really do appreciate it. Remember to like the video. Matty F says, statistics and history don't lie. No team starting 0-8 have made the playoffs, nor have they crawled above 500. You're not wrong. I mean, there was a time where no team had ever gone from 0-3 to winning the World Series, but that happened too. So, don't, underestimate the impossible, I guess. Corey Carter says, maybe I'm imagining it, but it seemed like I could see the pressure on Austin Riley's face last night with the bases loaded. He seemed to have the I have to get this done look. Yeah, I mean, but see, that's exactly what Kevin Seitzer was talking about. If you ever read that article that came out after Seitzer got fired, if you don't know who Kevin Seitzer is, he was the old hitting coach. He basically said, look, these guys are trying too hard. They're too much in their head. They're only, they're more focused on the result than the process, all those little nuggets in there. And that's what I'm seeing. That's what I'm saying. And that, look, maybe there's an adjustment period. I don't know. But it's a tough sledding, no doubt about it. Let's see. The guy says they picked a bad day to show they can explode with runs. yeah, no doubt about that. Easy Tiger, 35, says, down the road, all the good players they have will be gone to better paying teams. The Braves will have a batch of new lower salary guys. Maybe. Maybe. I hope they can keep at least a few of them. Here we go. Cal Curian. Trevor Bauer. There it is. Look, a lot has come out about Trevor Bauer in recent days. He won his case, I believe. I don't want to speak on something I'm not completely up to date about. I have no problem with Trevor Bauer, at all. Like he rubs a lot of people in baseball the wrong way. I have never had an issue with the way he acts or the YouTube stuff. I think that stuff's great. I have just always said I don't know if the Braves would do it. I don't know if I just don't know if they're going to go down that road, which is neither here nor there. But I do know that Trevor Bauer, Trevor Bauer basically, how do I put this? Somebody asked Snit at one time, would we ever consider signing Trevor Bauer? And he flat out said no. I posted that on Twitter because I recorded it and it went viral. You've probably seen it. So I tend to believe that the Braves aren't going to do it. That's not to say no team will do it, but I don't think the Braves will. Corey Carter says it's negligent to keep Iglesias in the closer role. I don't disagree. I just don't know if that role is going to go to Kimbrel. I think it's almost negligent to keep Iglesias in any role right now. I think Iglesias might need some time in the minors. And I mean that sincerely. I don't mean it as a joke or to be funny or to put him down. He's having some serious issues. And I don't know that moving him to the 7th or 8th inning is really going to make that big of a difference. I could be wrong. I mean, sometimes that's a mental block. I don't know. Like Snit said, he's not executing. He's got stuff, but he's not executing. Maybe he needs a trip to AAA to sort some stuff out and do it with low risk. I don't know. Problem is, who else do we got? I guess Kimbrel now, but I mean, who else do we got? Let's see. Jameson tuning in. Lady Braves 1993 says, I think it is time to panic. We are 11 games back of the Mutts. Yeah, I mean, look, I put the title in there kind of as a joke. It's been time to panic. It's not a fun feeling. If you had asked me prior to the season what I thought we would be, I would have told you I think we would be competitive in the division. I think if we had a eventual downfall, it would be due to the bullpen. So far, I think I'm right. I still think the bullpen's the biggest problem. As big of a problem as our offense can be, I think our bullpen's the biggest single-handed issue. If you want to attack a department, which on a baseball team, there are 3 departments, maybe 4 if you want to include defense. But there's 3 departments, and that's position players, your batters, your hitters, starting pitchers, and bullpen. Well, our starting pitchers are only having issues because they're hurt. Our hitters are having issues because of inconsistency. Our bullpen's having issues because they're the issue in a lot of ways. So I think if you're going to do anything at the deadline, if you're going to make any kind of move that's not selling, that's buying, I think you got to attack bullpen. That's just my point of view. Corey Carter says, this is mental. We have too many guys that have a proven track record of success. The Braves are putting the pressure on themselves, and it started with the World Series or bust talk. I think that's fair a little. I think the World Series or bust talk is definitely part of it. I mean, it's not a bad mentality to have, but it's definitely going to put the pressure on. I think it's smaller than that. I think it's day-to-day. I don't think the World Series or bust thing is going to make you struggle at the plate in any given at-bat. I think it's more, we got to win this game so that we can be 9 games back and not 10 games back. How about you just win the day? Just win the day. And right now, they're not winning the day. So they're trying to win 2 weeks from now, in a way, and trying to climb. And, they're putting too much pressure at the plate because everybody feels like they got to carry the team. Just be the team. 2023, nobody carried the team. Everybody had little moments where they carried the team, but there wasn't a hitter that you looked at and went, that guy did it. Because even though Acuna won the MVP, Ozuna hit 30-something homers. Riley hit 30 homers. Olsen hit 30 homers. Harris, I think, hit 20 or close to it. So everybody kind of did their part. And right now, it was so refreshing, and it was wasted today, but it was so refreshing to see them hit with runners in scoring position, right? And I don't mean hit a bomb. I mean hit. That was nice. So, hopefully they'll figure it out. Easy Tiger says they should have lost Snitker and hired Washington as manager. Well, here's the thing, Easy Tiger. No matter who they hire, somebody's going to have a problem with it. Because, look, Washington got hired in Anaheim. He had one issue with Anthony Rendon, who, if there's anybody to have an issue with, Anthony Rendon's it. And he still got, talked about in the media and political discourse and all that for suggesting certain things. I like Wash. I like Wash a lot. I've interviewed Wash. Fun to talk to. Good person. And I don't know that he would really be doing anything different. right now. I think Snit is doing it in the way he was taught, which is Bobby Cox's way. I don't know that Ron Washington's way is a whole lot different. Now, he might have appealed to the Acuñas of the world and the Albieses of the world a little better than Snit does. But, this season has just been, I don't want to say doomed from the start, but it sure seems that way. The whole Profar incident, the injuries, every time they're doing something, every time it's moving positive, something is there to shoot it down. And at some point, maybe it's a change in philosophy. Look, 2021 doesn't happen without Jock Peterson. And Jock Peterson was a radical change of attitude. Right now, I don't know that there's a guy on the team that's got that. And that's unusual. A lot of good guys, a lot of guys that, are solid, a lot of guys that can hit. But I don't think you got the guy who, is the spark plug. I don't know that you got that. I don't know that you have a guy who is going to push everybody to be better. And Jock Peterson, it was that. I've always liked Johnny Gomes for that reason. I always thought Johnny Gomes was the guy that you'd want on your team, especially if there was a bench clearing brawl. He looked like he could fight. And we need some fighters. We need a couple guys that can come in and change the attitude, right? Even if it's a Guillermo Heredia, give me something. Right now, everybody's just kind of lackadaisical, and I'm hoping everybody can figure it out. Corey Carter says, if you believe that losing two guys that don't hit, pitch, or field crippled us, then I disagree. I don't know who you're talking about. Captain Spartan, if Ozuna the only main tradable asset we have, and would that put Acuna in DH? Well, I think we very well could put Acuna in DH because at some point, I think you could trade Profar, to be honest with you. He's not the only – okay, let me slow down. Ozuna is not the only tradable asset we have. I think you could trade Sale if you wanted to. I don't think you want to. You could trade Profar. You could trade some guys. There's no doubt about that. You could trade Sean Murphy. As good as Drake Baldwin has been, you could trade Drake Baldwin, either one. I don't think you want to trade both, but you could trade either or. One thing Drake Baldwin has proven is that we didn't need Travis d'Arnaud. Love Travis d'Arnaud, but I think that's solved. I think you could trade Sean Murphy and be okay. I think you could trade Drake Baldwin and be okay. So you have guys that you can trade. You got to be careful with who you do it with, because at one point we traded William Contreras, and I regret that every day. So, we'll see. In terms of would that put Acuna in DH, I think at some point Acuna is going to be DH anyway, because Ozuna, I believe, is a free agent at the end of the year, if I'm not mistaken. But I believe he is a free agent at the end of the year. So to me, Ozuna, let me see. Free agent 2026. So he's a free agent at the end of the year. He's your most tradable asset in the books. No doubt about that. But, I think that there are other guys that you could potentially trade that, you don't even know are on the market, right? Drake Baldwin's one of them, which would be a huge shocker, right? Rookie that comes up, has a great season. Well, he has value. What can he get me, right? What kind of pitching can Drake Baldwin get me? And if he can get me what I want, then I may, feel comfortable making the trade. So, we'll see. Let's see. A lot of folks in the chat. I'm going to have to get out of here in a minute. A lot of people. Corey Carter. Wander Suero has a 1.25 ERA and 21 innings for Gwinnett. Well, get him up here. What are we doing? Let's see. Lord. Vision Music Works tunes in. Good to see you. Good to see you. She says, not Freddie as manager again. I was joking. I genuinely hope that doesn't happen. But, we'll see. Jeff Barry says, Ron Wash was like a mentor to them. His leaving definitely created some sort of negative effect. I don't think you're wrong. I don't think that's what's affecting them now, but I definitely think there was an immediate effect. I think now there's just a lack of energy, which I think could be shifted with some new leadership. Vision Music Works says, when I said last year that losing Wash and EY hurt us, people disagreed. I didn't. Now I'm hearing so many people say it. Wash's wisdom was a big motivator. I definitely thought it was going to hurt us because there's just nobody that quite matches up to that level of knowledge, that level of ability to appeal to young players like Wash has. And same with EY, just the having fun, getting to the ballpark and having fun. We need some of that. And I don't know that we have it right now. Corey Carter, you'll appreciate this, John. Corey Carter says, Wash drops F-bombs like they are breaths of air. That's pretty good. Duck Disciple. I've been watching Duck Dynasty off the hook. R.I.P. Phil Robertson, but I've been watching Duck Dynasty like off the hook. So Duck Disciple. I'm not a Duck Disciple, but in a way I am. Wash has fire, ain't afraid to hold players accountable. All I know, this team has gone downhill since he left for one reason or another. I don't think you're wrong. Corey Carter says, I think AA overreacted with that Contreras trade. I think he thought he was going to get something a lot better than what he did. I think the problem with the Contreras deal, or the problem with Contreras for the Braves, was that, a lot of pitchers didn't want to throw to him because of the defense. I mean, he could hit. There was never a problem with him hitting, but everybody wanted to pitch to d'Arnaud, and that's the main reason. But look, it makes me sick to see him in a Milwaukee uniform. Jeff Berry says, that's how the D-backs played against us, fighting their way through us, no doubt. Hello, Newman, 064. I've always said it until I was red in the face. You got to have a guy like Heredia. Well, I hope I appealed to your inner mind. Orlando was kind of the same guy before he took the starting role after Dansby left. Yeah, had Orlando not been given higher expectations, I think he'd have been fine. I will say Nick Allen has been fun to watch in a way. Somebody compared him the other day to what's his name? Who's Darth Vader in Spaceballs? What's his name? Darth Helmet? Yeah, Darth Helmet. Somebody compared him to Darth Helmet the other day, and that meme made me laugh. I wish I could show you, but that meme was hilarious. No shade to Nick Allen, but the helmet's too big. It was pretty funny. But he's been really fun to watch. Eli White's been fun to watch when he's running the bases correctly. I mean, there's definitely positives to be taken away, no doubt about that. But there's also it just hasn't flowed. It just hasn't been the Braves that we know, and at some point that's got to change. We're about to get out of here. One more time, though, guys. Thank you for being here. Number one, we're going to be far more active going forward. We're going to be here at least once a week. I told you that. I meant it. And we're going to be here. So if you would, please do us a favor. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications, all that good stuff. Really would appreciate it. Again, thank you for being here. Thank you to Corey. Thank you to Jameson. Thank you to Newman. Thank you to Vision. Thank you to Jeff. Thank you to Duck. Thank you to everybody out there. Really do appreciate it. And, of course, we're going to be here throughout the entire season, whether the Braves are great or whether they stink. We're going to be here. So we're going to be here to talk about it. The trade deadline's coming up. We will have a lot of content around that, whether the Braves will be sellers, whether they'll be buyers, all that good stuff. We're going to be talking about it. So if you would do us a favor, again, like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications so that you know every time we go live and every time we are active. One more time, also, just want to give thanks to our sponsors, Glenn Smith Chevrolet GMC in Opelika. Thank you to their support. They have been great supporters of our channel, and of course, they've been doing it now for over a year. If you need a vehicle, they are the place to go. People drive across the country to buy vehicles from Glenn Smith Chevrolet. You would not be disappointed, but I guarantee you will be surprised at the deals over there in Opelika, Alabama. So That said, everybody, again, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time right here and On Deck.
Baseball fans, make sure you like and share this video and subscribe to this channel. As always, thank you for your support.